Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're permanently dismantling a tired biology cliché to reveal the true, shape-shifting reality of the mitochondrion. We're going to explore a microscopic machine that is so incredibly complex, it actually has its own DNA and operates like an independent, bustling city right inside your cells. The powerhouse of the cell. We all remember this iconic, almost inescapable phrase from high school biology, right? But here's the truth. That label drastically oversimplifies a microscopic world of life, death, and dynamic energy that is happening inside of you right at this very moment. Honestly, calling the mitochondrion just a powerhouse is kind of like calling a modern smartphone just a flashlight. For decades, textbooks drew it as this static, little jelly bean just floating aimlessly in the cellular fluid. But the reality is far more intense. The mitochondrion is actually a tethered, semi-autonomous network. It's a highly fluid command hub that not only generates the energy you need to breathe and think, but it also makes literal life or death decisions for your cells on a minute-by-minute basis. So here is our roadmap from today's explainer. We'll start by moving beyond the powerhouse myth, then decode the ATP energy engine, uncover its secret role as a cellular death switch, explore its shape-shifting network dynamics, and finally, look at the physical tethers and communication bridges it uses to control the cell. Okay, Section 1, Beyond the Cell's Powerhouse. Let's dive right into the incredible physical layout that makes all of this cellular magic possible. Now, what's really fascinating here is the extreme density of the inner mitochondrial membrane. Unlike the highly permeable outer membrane, which just freely exchanges molecules with the rest of the cell, this inner membrane is intensely regulated. It is absolutely packed with nearly 80% protein. And get this, it contains zero cholesterol. That lack of cholesterol keeps it rigid and impermeable, allowing it to fold into these deep structures called cristae to maximize its working surface area. But that massive protein density, it requires an incredibly tight seal. This impermeability is entirely thanks to a unique fat molecule called cardiolipin. It acts as the ultimate lock, sealing the inner membrane so tightly that even the tiniest protons can't slip through. And that perfect seal is absolutely critical, because without it, the mitochondrion just couldn't build the electrochemical gradient it needs to generate power. Section 2, the ATP energy engine. With that critical seal established, let's see how this all builds into the ultimate energy engine. The bioenergetics of oxidative phosphorylation, which is basically just the process of extracting energy locked in the chemical bonds of your food, can be broken down into 3 distinct steps. First, nutrients are oxidized to generate high-energy electron carriers. Next, those electrons are fed into the electron transport chain. And finally, through a process called chemiosmosis, that kinetic energy is converted into usable ATP. So, the crucial point here is that as those high-energy electrons travel down the transport chain, they are constantly releasing energy. The mitochondrion then uses this energy to pump protons across that completely sealed inner membrane we just talked about. This creates this massive, tightly coiled spring of energy called the proton motive force, featuring a blistering 180 millivolt electrical charge. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact mechanical output of the electron transport chain. Notice the truly surprising fact here. While complex 1 and 3 pump 4 protons each, and complex 4 pumps 2, complex 2 pumps absolutely 0 protons. The energy delta there is just way too low, so it simply acts as an integral link, passing electrons to a mobile carrier called coenzyme Q without pumping a single proton itself. Now all those trapped protons are screaming to get back into the mitochondrial matrix. They desperately rush back through a physical channel called complex 5, or ATP synthase. This flow of protons physically spins a hydrophobic ring, kind of like a microscopic carousel. This spinning turns an asymmetrical axle, forcing the catalytic head through 3 violent physical states: open, loose, and tight. It literally, mechanically crushes ADP and phosphate together into the ATP that powers your entire life. Moving to Section 3, the cellular death switch, because this incredible energy engine, it actually has a pretty dark side, acting as a cellular executioner. We have to ask ourselves, what happens when mitochondria break down? Or when a cell suffers irreversible DNA damage? Well, the mitochondrion doesn't just passively shut off.
Instead, the organelle actively pivots from sustaining life to initiating a highly organized, intentional cellular suicide. It becomes the primary death switch for the entire cell.
This death sequence relies on a process called MUMP. Pro-apoptotic proteins literally punch holes, we're talking giant macropores, into the outer membrane. This massive structural breach leaks a protein called cytochrome C out into the cellular fluid. Out there, it binds with other proteins to form this wheel-like structure called an aposome. And that effectively triggers swift proteolysis, a process that just shreds cellular proteins, dismantling the cell from the inside out in a matter of hours. And the wild thing is, this threat is always lingering. Even when functioning perfectly normally, the energy engine isn't flawless. Roughly 1 to 2% of electrons leak early from the transport chain. These escaped electrons react prematurely with oxygen to form highly reactive free radicals, which can cause severe oxidative stress and damage if they aren't carefully managed by the mitochondria's own internal defense enzymes. Which brings us to section 4, shapeshifting and network dynamics. Because of this constant wear and tear, the organelle is forced to constantly remodel itself. Remember that static jelly bean myth? The truth is, mitochondria are a highly fluid, shape-shifting network. They are constantly undergoing fusion, literally merging together to heal, complement genetic defects, and share resources. On the flip side, they undergo fission, splitting apart to divide during cell growth or to strategically isolate heavily damaged components from the rest of the healthy network. And the process of fission is an incredible mechanical feat. It's physically executed by a protein called DRP1. This protein gets recruited from the cellular fluid and acts as a microscopic cellular noose. It literally wraps around the mitochondrion, gradually tightening and constricting until it cleanly snaps both the outer and inner membranes right in half. But what happens to the damaged piece that just got cut away? Well, if a severed organelle is beyond repair and loses its electrical charge, it triggers an ultimate quality control system called mitophagy. The dead mitochondrion accumulates specific alarm proteins like PINK1 and parkin, tagging it for total destruction and recycling by the cell's lysosomes, which are essentially the cellular garbage disposals. And it does this before that damaged piece can accidentally trigger the cellular death switch we talked about earlier. Section 5, tethers and communication bridges. Finally, let's explore how this entire shifting network actually communicates with the rest of the cell. You see, mitochondria do not float in structural isolation. They are physically tethered to another massive structure called the endoplasmic reticulum by specialized bridges called MAMs. These bridges hold the two organelles just 10 to 30 nanometers apart. This ridiculously close connection allows for direct transfer of lipids, ultra-fast calcium tunneling to prevent toxic spikes in the cell, and incredibly, the ER actually wraps its tubules around the mitochondrion to structurally constrict its diameter, literally priming the exact site where that DRP1 noose will eventually strike. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating perspective to close out today's explainer. If everything we thought we knew from high school about this simple powerhouse was just the tip of the iceberg, if it's actually this shape-shifting, intricately tethered, life-and-death decision-maker, what other incredible microscopic machinery is quietly operating inside you right now? Keep asking questions and keep exploring.